Hey everybody, this is Paul from Acill Classics, and I am going to do something a little bit different today. I'm actually going to be working on this Sega Dreamcast instead of an Amiga item, and I'm going to be modifying it. We're going to get rid of the GD drive that's in this thing, the Gigadisc as it's called, replacing it with a GDEMU that's going to allow us to use SD cards in place of the discs. Helps it to run a little bit cooler, makes it a little bit more fun to use, and of course it allows you to put a whole lot more games in one location. There is, however, something a little bit different to this. So let's go ahead and get started, and I will show you. Again, this will be a multi-part video. So part one, we're just going to go over and show what to expect. Once I get some more parts in, I'll move on to the next parts, and we will continue on from there. So step one, of course, you gotta get rid of this shell. So in order to do that, you're going to remove first the modem has to come off. And again, that's just sits on the side here. Just pop it off. And underneath there, which I've already done to save some time, there's 4 screws. You have one located here, one located here, one underneath the modem right here, and another one in this corner. Once you get those 4 screws out, there are these black colored screws here, pretty straightforward. Put them off to the side, keep them safe because you are going to need them again. And you simply just pop the top, comes right off. Again, set it off to the side. And what was special about this one that I said? Well, some of you guys that might be in the know can probably recognize this fan right here as this being a Rev 0 or a 0 version, which some people say you can't put a GDEMU in those things. They run off of 5 volts. You're going to burn it up. Well, I say have parts can make it in a modification, and we can take care of that. I'm going to show you how to do that safely and cleanly without any bridges or wire hacks or anything like that. So again, the next step that you need to do for this is you got to get this GD-ROM drive out of here. Again, super simple, and it's just a matter of a couple of screws. We're going to go ahead and start with that. Again, there's 3 screws to remove these. You've got one located right here. You've got another one located right over here, and you have your last one right back here in the back corner. You can actually see it in the camera. So let's go ahead and get those removed, and we'll continue on with the next steps. So again, we're just I really like these Dreamcasts. It's a shame that Sega didn't keep these things going. I mean, they're nice, small, compact. They had some fantastic games. Way ahead of their time. Just Sega not marketing. Okay, with those 3 screws out, pretty straightforward. You just want to go ahead and grab it, and be careful because these are just kind of floating in here on these rubber bushings. They're not really screwed in, but the whole unit itself is going to pop out, and it's just held on with one quick 0 and first insertion type connector at the bottom there. Again, right there, that's all that's holding this thing on. You can put this off to the side again. You will not be using it, and you're going to replace it with the GDEMU that's just going to sit in here. I'm still waiting for that to show up. However, I do want to continue on. So what we need to do is, normally with a version 1, all you do now is you put your GDEMU in here, you add 3D printed things and so on and so forth, and you're just about done. In our case, we have to do some motherboard modifications, and that involves pulling the motherboard out. So let's get started with that. Again, there's some screws. You obviously see this power supply is in the way. It has to come out. You got this board here and wait for your joysticks and your battery. You got your LED and stuff and your fan controller. All that's going to need to come out. You got one quick easy ribbon connector here. We'll go ahead and remove all of that, and we'll get started with modifying this motherboard. Alright, we've pulled several screws out. A couple from the power supply that was located here. Carefully remove the ribbon from the motherboard. Pull the power supply out. It just lifts right out. It's pretty simple. And there's several screws all around the outside edge here. 2 of the bronze ones on the end here. Keep in mind, the rest of them are all the black screws. They all come out. Set them aside, and now this plate will be able to lift off, and it should give us some access to the motherboard, and it'll also allow us to remove the fan unit and the heat spreaders and all that stuff. So we're going to need to be careful with that and get it all back into place. But again, once we lift off the cover, it exposes the motherboard nicely, gives us a chance to do some cleanup, some maintenance, and verify it. Alright, so here we are back again with the motherboard removed out of the case. Again, pretty simple. Just take the screws out, pull the shield off. One thing you do want to be careful of, if you'll notice, I took the heat pipes off and I put them in a bag here. The reason for that is there's some thermal pads on the bottom of these that go on the big chip here and the other chip over here. Mine are still very good shape. They're clean. I'm going to reuse them. And for now, I'm going to show you the components that we need to replace. Again, super simple, super easy to do. And they're resistor packs. And you're going to get those resistor packs. You can pick them up at, I got mine at DigiKey, Mouser, anywhere. Actually, these ones came from Mouser. Let's go ahead and show you on the board here where those resistor packs are going to be replaced at. And there's 7 of them in total. They're small, but they're not too difficult to get to. And we'll go ahead and zoom in. The first one is on the top, and the other 6 are on the bottom side of the board. But this is the first resistor pack right here that you're going to be replacing. And that is RA525, I believe it is, or 535. But again, you can see it. It's here right next to C506. Pretty simple. And we'll go ahead and zoom in on that so you can get a good look at it. So this right here is the first resistor pack that you're going to remove. Again, it's on the top of the board, right next to the GD drive connector there. The next one that we're going to be doing is going to be located on the back side of the board, and they're pretty conveniently located as well. You're going to flip that board over, straight over here, and at the very bottom of the board, just opposite of that GD drive connector, you're going to see 6 more of these, and we'll try to get this to focus a little bit better here, but you can see all 6 of them are located right here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Again, located right directly on the other side of that GDU connector, and pretty straightforward. 6 packages. There you go. So now you can clearly see all 6 of them again. We'll go ahead and point those out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And those are just going to come straight off the board and get replaced. Now, one thing to remember, once you do this, you can't go back to using your GD drive anymore. This is a modification that only allows you to safely use the GDEMU, which runs on 3.3 volts. And this particular version, again, runs on 5 volt. Pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and get started on the first, again, this one right here. So we'll go ahead and flip it around so you can probably see that a little bit better. Yeah, that's much better. And I'll do my best to get this off working this way. Shouldn't be too difficult, and you should be able to see it fairly well. The first component that we're removing, as I mentioned previously, is this one located right here. And we're just going to add some solder to it. And I'm going to have my tweezers handy, and we'll see what happens here. It looks like in this case, it's not really wanting to cooperate with me so much. And it would probably be a lot quicker if I just did it the easier way. But I'm trying to show you a way to do it with tools that ain't. There we go. So again, just add enough, get it off. Pretty straightforward. So again, all I'm using is just an iron for that. And then just add some solder, get some heat in there, and it'll go. So that's the first one removed. Let's go ahead and take off the other ones. Again, as I mentioned before, they're right on the other side. So we'll just take this board, flip it straight over, just like that. The ones that we're going for are these 6 right here. And we're going to go ahead and just do it the same way. Again, no special tools. I'm just using my normal regular old soldering iron here. You could probably add some flux, make it go a little bit easier for you, but heck, it's a Dreamcast. These are fairly cheap. I'm just gonna add some solder and go to town. And there's one. And then again, don't worry about cleaning it up. We'll get to that later. We're going to use some solder braid, and we'll go ahead and take care of that. Again, add some solder. You'll know when it's ready because it'll just pop right off like so. Easy stuff. And again, you're just going to want to carefully do this. You're not pushing too hard. You're not doing anything much. All we're doing is adding some solder. Heating up the pads just a little bit until you start to see it wiggle. Pop them off. There's 3 off. Go ahead and add a little bit more solder. Again, take your time. This isn't a race. There's no point in damaging it or destroying your board. This one's being a little bit more stubborn, so maybe I'll hit the other side here just to get it a little bit. There we go. It is off. Throw that one to the side. I'm going to go ahead and clean my iron a little bit more to help out. Got 2 more to go. So let's go ahead and hit it. Both sides. Add some more solder. Again, pretty easy. 1 more to go. Get rid of this old one here. Okay. This one looks like it's going to be much easier than the others. Again, there we go. Gone. Just like that. Alright, now that we have all those out of the way, very important, we're going to want to flux these up. Again, I'm using Amtech flux. You can use whatever kind of flux you want in this situation. It really doesn't matter too much. What we're doing here is we just want to clean up these pads so that we can accept some new solder. Just go ahead and put some flux on there. You want to take your solder braid. If you don't have solder braid, just like this, very important stuff. This solder wick, solder braid, whatever you want to call it, is going to help clean up those pads. It's going to help get the old solder all off. And it's going to make it nice and shiny again so that we can accept some new solder. So go ahead and look for my cutters here. Get myself a nice, clean, fresh piece of solder braid in this situation. Again, all we're going to do now is, just like before, we're just going to take our iron, take a little bit of this solder braid here, and we're going to put it right on pad. And carefully, you don't want to ruin these pads, just go over it and it will take the solder right off. You don't have to push hard or anything, just enough for it to absorb that old solder. And there we go. Nice clean solder pads. And before that stuff has a chance to solidify and get dried and nasty on you, take some good alcohol and a good clean cotton swab, Q-tip, whatever you want to call them. Go over it and clean it up. Get all that crap off of there. You do not want to leave it on. Make sure that your pads are nice and clean. That squeaky sound means that you did good. Clean it up. And there you have it. We got 6 nice clean pads ready for new components. Throw that butt in the trash. They're cheap. Flip it back over again. Guess what we're going to do? We are going to... let's flip it this way so you can see what we're doing. We are going to now do the same thing with this one here. We're going to clean it up. And we're going to do it the same way. And we are going to take a new piece of solder braid. We're going to add more flux to the old spot here. And again, just remove that old solder. Let the braid do the work. And clean it up and get it ready for the new component, just as before. Again, anybody can do this stuff. It is not difficult. You just have to have a nice, steady, slow hand. Be patient. There's no point in rushing. There you go. Into the trash. Nice and clean, ready for the next component. We're going to go ahead and knock out this one right here. Make it nice and easy. I'll probably do all these on camera for you. Again, they're all going to be the same. But we're going to start with our resistor pack. And again, these resistor packs, and if you can see that, this is a 1K. So it's fairly straightforward. And these, in this case, it doesn't matter which direction they go. I like to keep them all together, but again, you can see how they go here. Pretty straightforward, and I'm going to keep all of the numbers in the same orientation here. So as I'm looking at this right now, and you're seeing it upside down, I'm seeing it right side up, and it's going to be, I'm reading 1000 on it, as if you were reading it normally, though. So we're going to keep them all the same direction. So that fits very well. Again, we can't emphasize it enough. Flux, flux, flux. We're going to go ahead and put some flux down on this pad. And I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to go ahead and put this into place. And I'm going to just tack down one side of it, just to make sure that it's good. Again, you want to line this up as straight and as on the pads as you possibly can, because you don't want to have to go back and move this thing once you put it on. And just get it on there as straight as possible. This is the boring part of the video, I know, but it's what everybody likes to see. So, you know, we've got that on there. I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of solder here. I'm going to actually put some solder on the tip of my iron, and that is just so that I can take my tweezers here and hold this in place just enough so that I can lock it in. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and lock that in place, and again, now it's locked in. I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite corner. Same thing. Just lock that in place. Again, you saw how easy that was? Pretty straightforward. And now what you can do is you can just either drag it across, or you can do point by point. Whatever's easy for you. As long as you got flux on there. I like to have a nice clean tip when I do this. And we're just going to go right in with the solder. I'm going to touch it on there, and I'm just going to go point to point in my case for this one to make it easy. Just drag it on. That's pretty good. Again, you want the flux to work for you. So again, I'm just going to go on here. I'm just going to touch it on there. I'm just going to go point to point. And that's all there is to it for that one. We got a nice, good connection. I don't see any bridges on that one. Just to be on the safe side, we're going to go back over it again where I can see it better. A little bit more in there. And that's all there is to it. So we'll go ahead and do the other 5 on this side. And I'm not going to talk too much for this next round. I'm just going to go ahead and knock them out of the way for you. And you guys can just follow along. Just remember, the important thing is that you want to use some flux. Because the flux is going to do most of the work for you. Again, I like to have a little bit of solder on my iron for the very first corner. Keep that iron clean. Again, the flux is going to make life easy for you here. A little more than I like on there. And that's the first 2, so I'm going to go ahead and pause this. I'm going to finish the last 4. We'll flip it over and I'll show you the other side. Okay, so there we go. We've got all 6 on this side taken care of. And I'm going to go ahead and clean them up again. A little bit of IPA. And we're going to zoom in a little bit here and check for shorts and all that stuff. Make sure I get all this flux off of here. Alright, and let's check for shorts. And we're good. So front side, or the back side rather, is good. Let's go ahead and flip it over to the other side. As we mentioned before, we've got the one more right next to the thing there, so we'll go ahead and do that one. It's a pretty good position, I think, so you guys can see. We'll go ahead and add some more flux. Again, I don't like to be shy with this stuff. We're going to go ahead and open the last one up. Just drop it right next to it. And get my iron and add just a little bit of solder to it. The hair so I can see. Again, you want to get this squared out on those pads. Make sure that all 8 of those legs are as even and centered as possible. And I'm just going to tack it on here. And we'll go ahead and flip it to the other side. I know you won't be able to see that, but I need to see it. In my case here, I'm going to go ahead and touch it with some solder. I'll go ahead and flip around so you can see it now. These last legs. And that is it. So same. Go ahead and get this flux off of here. Alright, so there we go. We've got all 7 of them on. Soldered well. I'll go ahead and do one quick check to make sure that there's no bridges on this one as well. So that's the end of part 1. I appreciate the watch. I hope you guys enjoyed something here. And when the rest of the parts come in, we'll go ahead and show you part 2. Thanks again. This is Paul from Acill Classics, and we'll see you in the next video.